Hello everybody, Dr. Vasquez here, coming to you again this afternoon to talk about death and permanent injury and disability from so-called rubber bullets, otherwise known as kinetic impact projectiles. So within that category of kinetic weapons, we have several different options to choose from, and you can see those listed here in table number 1. I'm not going to read the whole thing. This is going to be this could be my shortest video ever, but we'll see. Last week or so, I think it was last weekend, I did a video talking about the new wave of government-enforced violence within the United States. Supposedly mostly directed against immigrants. Not like that makes it excusable. But one video, which I'm sure most of you have seen by now, and I'll look for a clip of that so I can provide it within this video. One specific event, I believe in Chicago, was of the so-called immigration enforcement. They're kind of like a paramilitary group, which is very unusual. I'm not aware that the United States has ever had a paramilitary group operating inside of it like other countries have. So typically paramilitary groups, well, I mean, by definition, they're not military and they're not police. And so they're kind of in this gray zone and no one really has control over them. In other countries like Colombia, paramilitaries are kind of rogue gangs of armed people who serve whoever's paying them. And I don't know if we ever expected that would happen within the United States, but on some level that seems to be happening. So some of these agents from ICE shot a Christian pastor in the head with a pepper ball, I believe, or some type of kinetic weapon. And my comment in the video that I posted last week, which apparently ruffled the feathers of some of the diehard Trump supporters who describe themselves as born-again Christians. Those are the only people who write to me about supporting Trump. Anyway, it's just kind of unusual. It's by their own admission. It's not like I'm making it up. They send me messages. I look up their names. I find out who they are. And without any question, they all describe themselves as born-again Christians, followers of Jesus Christ, and Christian scholars. 2 out of 3 of them, it hasn't been that many people, but 2 out of 3 of them, they just say they're Christian scholars. I don't know what that means. But anyway, I found it discouraging to see that these ICE agents, again, they're kind of a paramilitary group. They don't really answer to anybody. But they shot this Christian pastor in the head. Now, let's say a group of armed Muslims on top of a roof shot a Christian pastor in the head with some type of kinetic weapon. That would be all over the news, and it would be just political firestorm in the United States. If an armed Muslim on top of a roof shot a Christian pastor in the head with a kinetic weapon, that would be a fireball in the United States. Oh, but when these ICE people did it, then everybody says, oh, well, it was justified or whatever.
Outside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility, they appear to be peacefully shouting towards agents positioned right on the roof. Suddenly, one of those agents opens fire with a pepper ball launcher. One of the projectiles strikes Pastor David Black, a First Presbyterian church in Woodlawn, hitting him in the head. He's seen collapsing to the ground as fellow demonstrators rush to his side.
So anyway, these articles included injury data on 1,984 people. Interesting number, 1984. 53 of whom died as a result of their injuries, and 300 people suffered permanent disability. Deaths and permanent disability often resulted from strikes to the head and neck, like I said before. So when I talked about that video in my other video on this kind of rogue state that's happening within the United States, I said that when they shot this pastor in the head with a kinetic weapon, they could have killed him. And so here I'm just providing the evidence for that. Deaths and permanent disability often resulted from strikes to the head and neck. That's 49%. 49% of deaths and 82% of permanent disabilities. Of the 2,135 injuries, in those who survived their injuries, 71% were severe. Kinetic impact projectiles, often called rubber bullets or plastic bullets. Those are actually two different things. Rubber bullets, at least in most situations in the U.S., they tend to be large projectiles, kind of like about the size of a golf ball, maybe a little bit bigger, but they're huge, and yeah, they can definitely cause injury. Plastic bullets, that's a miss. I mean, sometimes they are plastic, but one type, and I'll show you this as I say it. One type of so-called plastic bullet is a rubber-coated metal bullet. So it's actually a metal bullet like a normal bullet with a coating of plastic. Sorry about the background noise if you can hear it, but somebody is cutting a piece of aluminum tubing. So rubber or plastic bullets, commonly used in crowd-controlled settings. We find that these projectiles have caused significant morbidity and mortality during the past 27 years. Much of it from penetrative injuries, just like I said, penetrative injuries to the head, neck, and torso. Because these bullets are pushed, so to speak, they're not like a normal bullet which spins and therefore has inherent kind of accuracy. These are just kind of pushed through the muzzle, so to speak, and because of that, they're not spinning and they don't have the same accuracy that a bullet would have. So that's why they say here, inherent inaccuracy. Let's see. I'll show you this table. I'll post this table. I'm going to read that part that I highlighted up there. But you can see that most of these events have happened from Israel to Palestine, also the USA, also Northern Ireland appears to get quite a bit of this activity. But this was one of the more interesting reports. In the USA, using rubber and plastic bullets, and they killed 3 people in the United States. Obviously, that's pretty bad. You would expect Israel versus Palestine to be much worse, of course, because they have no accountability. Let's look at this. Let's look at what I highlighted here, and then I'll be finished with this. 53 people, 3% died from their injuries. 3% mortality is really high. Penetrative injuries caused 56% of the deaths, while blunt injuries caused 23%. Head and neck trauma accounted for 26 total, or 50% of the deaths, while chest and abdominal trauma accounted for 15 cases, or 27%. Here's a really interesting case. Let's look at this last sentence. Only 1 death was from an injury to an extremity, a severe knee injury that resulted in an air embolism to the lung with subsequent respiratory failure. Regarding permanent disability, we also identified 300 people, almost 16%, 15%, 15.5% of all survivors, with permanent disabilities directly caused by kinetic impact projectiles. The vast majority of these injuries were secondary to vision loss and abdominal injuries resulting in splenectomy. I was trying to mix like splenomegaly with splenectomy at the same time. Splenectomies, so spleen removal, because the spleen is very fragile, and once it gets injured, it's usually a goner. Or a colostomy, so intestinal injury. Amputation of a limb occurred in 2 different individuals. Well, that's pretty bad. Again, like I said, you can see in this chart, they talk about metal core or metal composition weapons. So they're basically steel bullets or steel projectiles coated with plastic or coated with rubber. I mean, it's still metal. So anyway, I'll post this on the website, but I wanted to provide you some kind of backup data since I did mention it. I'm sure some of you were like, oh, that never happens. Well, yeah, it does happen. And this is an old article. This is from 2017, so this is already 8 years old. But for those of you who say, oh, well, you're just anti-Trump because you're talking about shooting people in the head with kinetic weapons. Yeah, it's a real legit risk for injury. Plus, when you look at the video of the Christian, again, a Christian pastor praying to these guys who are up on a roof, and they shoot him in the head with a projectile, which I said could have killed him, and now you're looking at the support of that.
Outside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility, they appear to be peacefully shouting towards agents positioned right on the roof. Suddenly, one of those agents opens fire with a pepper ball launcher. One of the projectiles strikes Pastor David Black, a First Presbyterian church in Woodlawn, hitting him in the head. He's seen collapsing to the ground as fellow demonstrators rush to his side.
He wasn't misbehaving. He wasn't like being violent. He wasn't attacking anyone. He wasn't resisting arrest. He was simply, praying to these people. And I've found it then, and I continue to find it just completely unacceptable that this paramilitary group in the United States would be allowed to shoot this guy in the head when he's not even doing anything in any possible way abnormal or unusual, And the other thing is, so it's bad enough as it is, but the other thing that's horrible about it is, like I said before, if you had a group of Muslims or Mexicans up on top of a roof and they shot this Christian guy in the head without any provocation, which is exactly what happened in the video, the United States would be turned inside out, with the anti-Muslim or anti-Latin rhetoric. Oh, but since it was ICE, and since some people think that is somehow acceptable, then they just overlook it and they say, oh well, he should have stayed home. Well, eventually, like I said, you're going to find yourself in a country that has so many rules you can't even avoid the problems. And so take it or leave it, but the data is obviously on my side. Hope you're all doing well. Take care. Bye bye.